The lights in Joe's coffee shop flickered as John wiped down the counter for the 100th time that night. The small-town cafe was empty, and rain tapped against the windows. It was almost closing time, and John couldn't wait to go home. That's when the sky lit up outside. John looked up from the counter, expecting to see lightning. Instead, strange blue lights danced across the dark clouds. "Weird weather," he muttered, turning back to his work. In a small town like Millbrook, nothing exciting ever happened. The bell above the door chimed. "Sorry, we're about to close," John said without looking up. The sound of high heels clicked across the floor, stopping at the counter. "Hello, John." That voice, something about it made him freeze. John slowly raised his head and found himself staring at the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. She wore a simple blue dress, but her face was familiar in a way that made his heart stop. "Don't you remember me?" she asked, smiling. "I lived next door to you. We used to play in that old treehouse every day." John's eyes widened. Sarah. It couldn't be. Sarah Mitchell had moved away 15 years ago, when they were both 12. But this woman looked exactly like what Sarah would look like now, only different. Her skin seemed to glow faintly, like moonlight on water. "You do remember," she said softly. As she spoke, her skin shimmered with a subtle blue light, the same color as the lights in the sky. John stepped back. What are you?" "I'm still Sarah, still your friend. But I need your help, John. Earth is in danger, and you're the only human I trust." Outside, the strange lights in the sky grew brighter. Sarah's skin glowed more intensely in response. "My real name is Saraleth. I'm from a race called the Luminary. We've been watching Earth for centuries, protecting it. When I lived here as a child, my mission was to study humans, but also to guard something important." John's mind raced through memories of their childhood. The weird lights he sometimes saw in the treehouse, the strange things Sarah would say about the stars, the way she always seemed to know when something bad was about to happen. "Those summers we spent together weren't fake, John. Our friendship was real. But now, I need that friendship more than ever. Something is coming. Something terrible." The cafe's lights flickered again, then went out completely. In the darkness, Sarah's glowing skin cast a soft blue light across the room. Through the windows, John could see more lights appearing in the sky. But these were different. Sharp, aggressive red points of light, like angry eyes. "They're called the Void Hunters," Sarah said, her voice tight with fear. "They consume worlds, John. Entire civilizations, and they're heading for Earth." "Why me?" John asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Why come back to me?" Sarah reached across the counter and touched his hand. Her skin was warm, just like he remembered from their childhood handshakes and high fives. "Because you're special, John. More special than you know. Remember how we could always find each other, no matter where we hid during our games? That wasn't luck. You have a gift, a connection to the old defense systems we left on Earth ages ago." The red lights in the sky grew larger. Sarah's grip on John's hand heightened. "I know this is a lot," she said, "but I need you to trust me one more time, like you did when we were kids. Remember that day I convinced you to jump from the highest branch of the treehouse into that pile of leaves? You trusted me then, and you were safe. I need that trust again." Before John could answer, a deep rumble shook the building. The red lights in the sky were getting closer, and they were huge now, massive shapes blocking out the stars. "They're here," Sarah whispered. Her whole body was glowing now, her hair floating as if in a gentle breeze. "John, please, will you help me save your world?" John looked at their joined hands, then at the terrifying lights in the sky. Finally, he looked at Sarah's face, the face of his childhood best friend, now transformed into something both beautiful and alien, yet still somehow the same girl who had been his greatest adventure. "Tell me what we need to do," he said. Sarah smiled, and for a moment, She looked exactly like she did when they were kids planning their next big exploration. First, we need to get to the treehouse. There's something there I left behind. Something that can help us fight them. The red lights grew brighter, and a sound like thunder rolled across the town. Whatever was coming, John knew his ordinary life was over. But as he looked at Sarah's glowing face, he realized he wasn't afraid. After all, his best friend was back, even if she was an alien. The old treehouse looked smaller than John remembered. Rain dripped through its weathered boards as he and Sarah climbed up, their way lit by the strange glow of her skin. Below them, the red lights of the Void Hunter ships pulsed in the clouds like angry heartbeats. "Watch your step," Sarah said, placing her hand on the wall. Her touch made ancient symbols light up, spreading across the wood like blue fireflies. The treehouse isn't what it seems. John's jaw dropped as the rickety floor transformed. Smooth metal replaced rotting wood. Holographic screens flickered to life, showing maps of the town he'd known all his life, but different. Secret tunnels and hidden chambers glowed beneath familiar streets and buildings. All this time, John whispered, it was right here. While we were playing space explorers as kids, we really were exploring space technology. Sarah finished, smiling. Your imagination wasn't just imagination, John. Those stories you used to tell about underground cities and hidden alien bases. Your mind was sensing what was really here. A loud boom shook the treehouse. Through the window, they saw a Void Hunter ship landing in the park, its black surface eating the light around it. It looked like a piece of midnight had fallen to Earth. "We don't have much time," Sarah said, pressing her hands to a glowing panel. A section of the floor slid open, revealing a spiral staircase going deep underground. "The defense network has 4 nodes around town. This is the first one. We need to activate all 4 before the Void Hunters find them." They hurried down the stairs into a vast chamber that shouldn't have been possible under a backyard treehouse. Alien machines hummed with life, and in the center stood a pillar of swirling blue energy. "Place your hand here." Sarah guided John to a control panel. "Your DNA signature will help activate." A screech of tearing metal interrupted her. Something was ripping the treehouse apart above them. "They're here already." Sarah's voice shook. "That's impossible. They shouldn't be able to track." She stopped, looking at John with wide eyes. "Unless, John, take off your watch." "My watch? But I've had it since your 13th birthday, the day after I left." Sarah grabbed his wrist. "This isn't a watch. It's a beacon. They'd been tracking you your whole life, waiting for me to return." John yanked off the watch. Sarah quickly encased it in a bubble of blue energy, but it was too late. A dark shape crashed through the ceiling, landing between them and the energy pillar. It looked like a person made of living shadow, with red eyes that matched the ships above. "Little luminary," the shadow creature spoke, its voice like grinding metal. "Did you think we wouldn't prepare? We've watched this human since you left. Every dream he had of you, every time he looked at the stars and felt something missing. We were there, learning, waiting." Sarah's body erupted with bright light. "John, run. Get to the high school. There's another node in the basement. I'm not leaving you." John grabbed a piece of fallen metal, holding it like a weapon. The shadow creature laughed. "Brave little human. Show us what you can." Before it could finish, John threw his old watch straight at its face. Sarah's energy bubble burst on impact, releasing a blast of blue light that made the creature shriek. John didn't waste the opportunity. He sprinted to the control panel and slammed his hand down. The energy pillar pulsed, sending a wave of blue light shooting up into the sky. The shadow creature howled as the light touched it, its form beginning to break apart. "The node is activating." Sarah grabbed John's hand. "But we need to move. That blast will draw every Void Hunter in town." They ran through a tunnel that opened in the chamber wall, the sounds of pursuit echoing behind them. As they ran, Sarah's light showed more symbols on the walls, a map of the town's underground network. Why didn't you tell me? John asked as they ran. About the watch, about everything. Because you needed to grow up normal, Sarah said. And because I was afraid. The more you knew, the more danger you'd be in. I thought if I left, they'd leave you alone. They emerged from the tunnel into the high school parking lot. The night sky was filled with void hunter ships now, their red lights painting the town blood red. Well, I'm definitely not normal now, John said, watching the ships. Then he noticed something odd. Sarah, look at your hand. Where their hands were joined, John's skin had started to glow too, just faintly, but definitely glowing with the same blue light as Sarah's. That's not supposed to happen, Sarah whispered. Unless… Oh no. What? The stories about you having a gift. There's more to it than that. John, I think you might be. A chorus of shrieks cut through the night. Shadow creatures were emerging from every dark corner of the parking lot, their red eyes fixed on the faint glow of John's skin. Time to run again, John asked. Time to run, Sarah agreed. But John, whatever happens next, whatever you find out about yourself, remember that our friendship was always real. They sprinted toward the high school doors as shadows closed in around them. Above, the red lights pulsed hungrily, and somewhere in the distance, the treehouse node's blue light fought back against the darkness, marking the beginning of a war for Earth that had been brewing since two children first played in a treehouse that wasn't quite what it seemed. John and Sarah burst through the high school doors, their footsteps echoing in the dark hallway. The blue glow from their skin cast moving shadows on the walls, shadows that seemed to have minds of their own. Something's wrong, Sarah whispered, stopping suddenly. It's too quiet. She was right. The shadow creatures had stopped chasing them. The red lights from the void hunter ships still pulsed through the windows, but the shrieking had stopped. Joan? Sarah, is that you? They turned to see Mike, John's best friend since high school, walking toward them. He was wearing his police uniform, flashlight beam bouncing off the lockers. Mike. John started forward, but Sarah grabbed his arm. Wait, she said. Something's not right. Mike smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Come on, John. It's me. Remember when we stole Mr. Peterson's toupee in senior year? You can trust me. John took a step back. Mike was in Florida during senior year, and Mr. Peterson never wore a toupee. Mike's smile twisted into something horrible. His skin began to ripple like dark water, and his eyes turned red. But instead of attacking, he started laughing. A sound like breaking glass. Clever human, not Mike said. But can you spot all of us? Suddenly, the hallway filled with people. Teachers, students, townspeople John had known his whole life. All walking slowly toward them, all wearing the same wrong smile. The whole town, Sarah breathed. They've taken over the whole town. Not everyone, came a voice from behind them. They spun to see Ms. Chen, John's old science teacher, standing in a classroom doorway. But unlike the others, her eyes were normal, and she was holding what looked like a ray gun made from old lab equipment. Quick, in here, she fired the gun at the crowd. It shot bursts of ultraviolet light, making the possessed people hiss and back away. John and Sarah dove into the classroom. Ms. Chen slammed the door and drew glowing symbols around it with what looked like fluorescent chalk. You're not possessed, John said, staring at his teacher. How? Ms. Chen tapped her thick glasses. These aren't just for reading. I've been watching over this town since before Sarah was assigned here. I'm what you might call tech support. Sarah's eyes widened. You're a luminary observer, but I was told I was the only one in this sector. That you knew about, Ms. Chen winked. We've had our eye on John for a long time, especially after what happened the day you left, Sarah. What happened? John asked. I don't remember anything special about that day. Because we made you forget, Ms. Chen said gently. Both of you, after Sarah left, you were so upset that you You made every light in town explode. Your power was emerging too early. We had to suppress it." John's skin glowed brighter at her words. "I did what?" A bang on the door interrupted them. The possessed townspeople were trying to break in. "No time for the full story," Ms. Chen said, pulling a brick out of the wall to reveal a hidden panel. "The second node isn't in the basement. That was a decoy. It's in my supply closet. Been teaching chemistry next to it for 15 years. The door began to crack. Through the gaps, they could see red eyes and twisted smiles. "John," Sarah said urgently, "remember when we used to play that game? The one where we'd make up stories about people's secrets?" "Yeah, we'd look at someone and try to guess their biggest secret. You always won because your guesses were so wild." John trailed off, understanding dawning. "You weren't guessing, were you? You were teaching me how to spot things that weren't human." Sarah nodded. "Your power was always there. We just gave it a disguise. A game to practice without knowing you were practicing." The door splintered. Ms. Chen's chalk symbols were fading. "Less talking, more activating," Ms. Chen shouted, pushing them toward the supply closet. "Once the node is on, it'll clear the Void Hunter influence from anyone within range. But John, you have to be the one to do it. You're not just activating the node this time. You're going to be powering it." "What do you mean?" "You're not just connected to the defense system," Sarah said, taking his hand. "You're part of it. Those stories you used to tell about the stars. They weren't imagination. They were memories. Your memories. From before." The door exploded inward. The possessed townspeople poured through, led by not Mike. But now they looked different. Their skin was transparent, showing swirling shadows inside them. "Time to remember who you really are," Ms. Chen said, aiming her UV gun at the crowd. John placed his hand on the node's control panel. This time, the glow from his skin didn't stay faint. It burst out of him like a supernova, filling the room with brilliant blue light. In that moment, he saw flashes, stars, ships, other worlds. He saw himself, much younger, being sent to Earth. He saw Sarah being assigned to watch over him. He saw. "I remember," he whispered. The node activated with a pulse that shook the whole school. The possessed people screamed, not in pain, but in relief as the shadows were driven from their bodies. Mike collapsed to his knees, himself again. But the victory was short-lived. Through the windows, they could see more Void Hunter ships descending. "They'll just possess more people," Mike said weakly from the floor. "How do we stop them for good?" John looked at his glowing hands, then at Sarah. "We need to get to the other nodes, not just to activate them. I need to remember more. Because I'm not just part of the defense system." Sarah nodded. "No, you're the key to all of it. The reason they've been hunting this town, hunting you, for so long." "What is he?" Mike asked. Before Sarah could answer, the ceiling tore away, revealing a massive Void Hunter ship directly overhead. A beam of red light shot down, and in it stood a figure, like the shadow creatures, but larger, more solid. A Void Hunter commander. "He is the last of the architects," the commander said in a voice like dying stars. "The one who built the defense network. The one who could destroy us all. And now, finally, we found him, playing human in a small town on Earth." John stepped forward, his light pulsing in time with the nodes they'd activated. "You want to see what I can build?" he asked, and for the first time, his voice carried echoes of something ancient and powerful. "Let me show you." The real war for Earth was about to begin. Blue light pulsed from John's hands as he faced the Void Hunter commander. Behind him, Sarah and Ms. Chen raised their weapons, while Mike struggled to his feet. An architect playing human. The commander's voice rumbled like thunder. How far the mighty have fallen. But John wasn't listening. His eyes were fixed on Sarah, who had stepped away from him, her face filled with guilt. "You knew," he said quietly. "All this time, You knew what I really was." Before Sarah could answer, the commander shot a beam of red energy at them. John instinctively raised his hands, and a shield of blue light blocked the attack. The collision of energies shattered every window in the school. "Run," Ms. Chen shouted, firing her UV gun at the commander. "Get to the gym. The third node is under the basketball court." They ran, but this time, John kept his distance from Sarah. More memories were flooding back with every step. Memories of stars and distant worlds, of great machines and hidden powers, but also memories of betrayal. "You weren't just sent to watch me," he said as they ran. "You were sent to keep me weak, to keep me forgetting." Sarah's blue glow dimmed with shame. "It's not that simple, John. The truth is, I was sent to love you." They burst into the gym, the sound of destruction following behind them. John stopped, staring at her. "What?" "The Luminary Council knew an architect's powers are tied to their emotions," Sarah explained quickly. "They thought if you formed a deep emotional bond as a child, then lost it, the trauma would lock away your powers forever. I was supposed to be your best friend, then break your heart by leaving." The gym doors exploded inward. The commander entered, its shadow form now twice as tall. "Tell him the rest, little luminary," it laughed. "Tell him why you really came back." Sarah's eyes filled with tears that glowed like starlight. "Because it worked too well. The plan wasn't just to lock away your powers, John. It was to lock away the part of you that was an architect completely, to let you live a normal human life. But when I left, when you made all the lights explode, something went wrong." "The suppression wasn't complete," Ms. Chen added, backing away from the advancing commander. "Instead of forgetting everything, parts of you went dormant. Started leaking out in dreams, in stories, in little moments of impossible power. And now they're all waking up," Mike said, watching John's skin glow brighter and brighter. The commander raised its hands, and shadow creatures began pouring through the walls. "The Luminary's great plan. Take the last architect, the greatest builder of defenses in the galaxy, and turn him human. Make him weak. Make him forget. All because they feared his power as much as we did." John's mind raced through memories, building great machines among the stars, creating defense systems for 1,000 worlds, and then choosing to hide on Earth. "But why?" "That's not all," Sarah said, her voice breaking. "I came back because I broke the greatest rule of my mission. I really did fall in love with you, John. Not because I was ordered to, but because of who you are, human or architect or both." The commander laughed again. How touching. The spy fell in love with her target. But love won't save Earth. Only power will. It gestured, and the shadow creatures surged forward. But before they could attack, John slammed his foot down on the basketball court. The floor split open, revealing not just a node, but something much bigger. "I remember this," he said, his voice echoing with power. "I didn't just build the defense network. I built something inside it. A failsafe. Because I knew they'd try to use me. Both sides. The Void Hunters want my power. The Luminary want to control it. So I hid it in pieces, in nodes, in memories." The gym's floor continued to open, revealing a massive machine that hummed with ancient energy. Lights began spreading from it, forming a web of glowing lines across the floor, walls, and ceiling. "You want to see an architect's true power?" John asked, placing his hand on the machine. "Watch." Energy exploded from the device, but it wasn't just light. It was pure creation energy. Where it touched the shadow creatures, it didn't destroy them. It transformed them. Their darkness became solid, their red eyes turned to normal colors, their forms shifted from shadow to substance. "What are you doing?" the commander roared. "What I was always meant to do," John answered. "I'm not just building defenses anymore. I'm building bridges, giving form to shadow, making the dark into light." The transformed shadow creatures looked at their new solid forms in wonder. The commander backed away, its own form flickering between shadow and something more substantial. "You hit on Earth," Sarah whispered, understanding dawning in her eyes, "because humans are the bridge. Between light and dark. Between creation and destruction. You weren't running away. You were looking for the answer. And you helped me find it," John said, looking at her with new understanding. "Maybe not in the way the luminary planned, but loving someone, it teaches you that nothing is just one thing. Not humans, not architects, not even void hunters." The commander looked at its slowly solidifying hands. What are we becoming?" "Something new," John said. "Something balanced, because that's what Earth taught me. That's what being human taught me. Light needs shadow. Creation needs space to grow. And love, real love, doesn't take away your power. It shows you how to use it right." Sarah stepped forward, her light mixing with John's. "The luminary council was wrong. Your power wasn't the danger. Fear of it was." More void hunter ships appeared overhead, drawn by the transformation of their commander. But John just smiled. "Time to wake up the rest of the nodes," he said. "Not to fight, to transform. Earth isn't just another battlefield. It's the key to ending the war. Because humans taught me something no other species could." "What's that?" Mike asked, watching in awe as more shadow creatures transformed. "That the best defense isn't a weapon," John said, taking Sarah's hand. "It's a doorway, a chance to change, to become something new." The commander, now almost fully solid, looked at its transformed soldiers. "You're going to change all of us, our entire species." "I'm going to give you the choice," John answered. "The same choice Earth gave me, to be more than what you were made to be." Sarah squeezed his hand. "We should hurry. The Luminary Council will send ships when they realize what's happening." "Let them come," John said, his human smile mixing with his architect's power. "It's time for everyone to wake up, to remember what they can become." Above them, the void hunter ships began to pulse with both red and blue light as the age of transformation began. The luminary ships arrived at dawn, their golden hulls making the sky look like it was on fire. John stood in the high school parking lot, watching them descend while transformed void hunters, now solid, colorful beings, gathered behind him. "The council brought the entire defense fleet," Sarah said, her voice tight with worry. "They're not here to talk." "No," John agreed. "They're here to stop us from talking." The lead luminary ship landed in the football field, crushing the bleachers. A figure emerged, tall, elegant, wrapped in robes of living light. Grand Council member Marina, Sarah's superior. "My dear Sarah," Marina's voice chimed like crystal bells. "Step away from the architect. Your mission is over." But Sarah stood closer to John. "My mission was a lie. And so was everything you taught us about the void hunters." Marina's beautiful face hardened. "The void hunters are monsters of pure destruction. Look what he's done to them. Corrupted their very nature." "Given them choice," John corrected. "The same choice you feared I'd give your people." He turned to the transformed commander. "Show her." The commander stepped forward. Where once it had been a creature of shadow and terror, now it looked like living crystal. Dark and light swirled together in perfect balance. "We were not born as shadows," it said in a voice that now sounded like deep music. "We were made this way, by the first luminary weapons. We were once like you." Marina's light flickered. "Lies. The void hunters have always been." "Created," John interrupted, "by your ancestors. An experiment in dark energy weapons that gained consciousness, then rejected and hunted when they began to question their makers. That's the truth I discovered before I chose to hide on Earth. The truth your council tried to bury along with my memories." The transformed void hunters began to sing, a deep, haunting melody that made the air shimmer. The remaining shadow creatures around town responded, their forms beginning to shift and solidify. "Stop this," Marina commanded. She raised her hand, and energy beams shot from the luminary ships, trying to disrupt the transformation. But something unexpected happened. Where the beams hit, they created rainbows, splits in light itself that made everything they touched more vibrant, more real. "What's happening?" Mike asked, watching colors dance across his skin. Ms. Chen laughed. "Don't you see? They can't stop it because they're part of it. Light and dark, creation and destruction. It's all connected. John isn't just transforming the Void Hunters. He's transforming everything." Marina stumbled back as her own light began to change, becoming deeper, richer, more complex. "What have you done?" "I remembered the final truth," John said. "The reason I chose Earth. Humans don't just exist between light and dark. They prove that opposites can become something greater together. Every human is a universe of contradictions that somehow work in harmony. That's what I saw in my time here. What Sarah helped me understand by truly loving me instead of just following orders." He raised his hands, and the transformed Void Hunters raised their crystalline hands with him. Energy poured from them into the fourth node, hidden beneath the football field. But this time, instead of activating a defense system, it began changing the system itself. All across town, hidden alien technology began to emerge, not to fight but to transform. The treehouse became a living bridge between earth and sky. The school merged with the light and shadow until it was a cathedral of impossible colors. The coffee shop where Sarah had returned became a fountain of liquid starlight. "Behold Earth's true purpose," John declared. "Not a battlefield, not a hidden bunker, but a crucible where different forms of life can become something new, something wonderful." Marina watched as her golden ships began to change, their metal flowering into organic shapes that merged light and shadow. "The council said your power was too dangerous, but we never imagined this." "Because you only saw power as a weapon," Sarah said. She was changing too, her blue glow gaining depth and texture like the northern lights given form. "Earth taught us it could be something else, a tool for growth, for healing." Suddenly, Mike pointed at the sky. "Look." The transformation was spreading beyond the town. Waves of creative energy pulsed outward, touching everything in their path. Plants grew in impossible colors. Animals gained subtle glows. Humans found themselves understanding deep truths without words. "You can't do this," Marina whispered. "You can't change the fundamental nature of species across Earth." "I'm not changing anything," John said softly. "I'm waking up what was always there, the potential in everything to be more than it was made to be." Humans knew this all along. Every story they told about magic, about transformation, about love changing the world. They were remembering a truth written into the universe itself. The transformed commander moved to stand beside John. "Our war was never about destruction. It was about recognition, about the right to be more than our programming. And now everyone will have that right," Sarah added, taking John's hand. Where their fingers met, light and shadow danced together, creating patterns that told stories of possible futures. But then a new sound cut through the dawn, a high crystal tone that made everyone freeze. From the largest luminary ship emerged a figure John remembered from his oldest memories. The Grand Architect herself. "My child," she said, her form shifting between light and shadow with each step. "Did you think you were the first to discover this truth?" John stared at his creator, his mentor, the one who had taught him to build wonders among the stars. You knew." The Grand Architect smiled, and her smile contained galaxies. "Why do you think I let you hide your memories here? Earth wasn't your discovery, John. It was your inheritance. And now it's time for the final lesson." The transformation paused as teacher and student faced each other in the dawn of a changed world, while Sarah, the transformed Void Hunters, and the whole town held their breath, waiting to see what would happen next. The Grand Architect walked across the transformed football field, each step leaving blooming patterns of light and shadow in the grass. John felt Sarah's hand tighten in his as his creator approached. "You let me hide on Earth," John said. "You wanted me to learn this." "What I wanted," the Grand Architect replied, her voice carrying echoes of ancient stars, "was for you to understand why we built the defense network in the first place. It was never about protecting worlds from the Void Hunters." She gestured, and the air between them became a window into the past. John saw the first architects, building great machines among the stars. But they weren't building weapons, they were building bridges between realities. The defense network, the Grand Architect continued, was meant to protect the universe from something far worse than shadows or light. From the nothing. The vision change, showing empty spaces between galaxies that were wrong. Not just empty, but hungry. Consuming. The nothing. Sarah asked, her transformed light dimming with fear. The absence of possibility. The Grand Architect explained. Where it touches, things don't just die. They never were. And it's been growing, feeding on the divisions between species, on wars, on fear. Every time we reject change, reject understanding, reject the chance to become more, we feed it. Suddenly, the beautiful dawn sky cracked. Through the cracks, they could see it, the nothing. Not darkness, not void, but the complete absence of everything, even potential. "That's why you needed humans," Ms. Chin breathed. "They're the only species that constantly changes, that embraces transformation as part of their nature." "Yes," the Grand Architect smiled. "But we needed more than that. We needed someone who could understand both building and becoming. An architect who could learn to be human." "Me," John whispered. "You were always special, even among architects. You didn't just build machines, you built possibilities. And now, with what you've learned on Earth, with the love you found," she looked at Sarah, "you can build the greatest thing of all." The nothing's cracks spread wider. The transformed Void Hunters and luminary ships moved closer together, their combined light holding back the emptiness. "What do we need to do?" the commander asked, its crystalline form glowing brighter. "The fourth node isn't just a node," John realized. Memories flooding back. "It's the core. The heart of everything I built before I hid my memories. But it needs life." Sarah finished. Real, messy, complicated life. Not just transformation, but the will to transform. Marina stepped forward, her own form now a blend of light and possibility. "The council was wrong. We all were. Fighting each other while the real enemy grew stronger." The nothing began to seep through the cracks, turning everything it touched into never was. Trees, grass, buildings, not destroyed, but simply unmade. "Everyone," John called out, "join hands." The transformed Void Hunters linked their crystalline hands with the luminary. Humans from town joined the circle, their ordinary forms somehow shining with extraordinary potential. Sarah and John stood at the center, while the Grand Architect raised her hands to the breaking sky. "The defense network wasn't meant to defend against enemies," John said, understanding at last. "It was meant to defend against emptiness, to keep possibility alive." He pressed his free hand to the ground, and the fourth node activated, but it didn't emerge like the others. Instead, the entire town began to pulse with power. Every street, every building, every piece of Earth itself was part of the machine. "Your coffee shop," he said to Sarah. "Our treehouse. The school. All the places where we made memories, where we changed and grew. I didn't hide the node in one place. I hid it everywhere, in every moment of possibility." The nothing pressed against their circle, trying to unmake their very existence. But where it touched their joined hands, it found something it couldn't erase. Choice, change, chance. "Now," the Grand Architect commanded. John and Sarah raised their joined hands, channeling the combined power of transformed Void Hunters, evolved luminary, and countless human possibilities. From their touch, reality itself began to transform. But the nothing fought back. It whispered to each of them, offering peace, offering an end to change and choice, and the pain that came with them, offering certainty. That's what it feeds on, John realized. Not just emptiness, the desire for emptiness, the fear of change. Sarah looked at him, her transformed form radiant with decision. Then let's give it something it can't handle. Let's give it everything. She pulled him into a kiss, and in that moment, every memory they'd ever shared, real, hidden, and potential, exploded outward. Their first meeting as children, their games and dreams, the pain of separation, the joy of reunion, the choice to love despite orders, despite programming, despite fate itself. The nothing recoiled from the burst of pure possibility. The transformed beings in the circle felt it and understood, each adding their own stories, their own choices, their own changes to the wave. Mike shared his memories of friendship. Ms. Chen shared her years of watching and hoping. The commander shared its journey from weapon to wonder. Marina shared her awakening from certainty to possibility. Every human in town shared their small daily transformations. Dreams, hopes, changes, choices. Reality itself began to transform, not into something new, but into something more. Colors that had never existed painted the sky. Music made of memory filled the air. The nothing's cracks became windows into incredible new possibilities. But victory came with a price. The network was never meant to channel this much possibility. The grand architect warned, "It's going to collapse." "Then we'll build something better," John said, holding Sarah tighter. "Something that grows instead of defends. Something that transforms instead of preserves." He looked at the gathered beings, human, luminary, void hunter, all now something more than they had been made to be. "Are you ready?" he asked them all. "To make the biggest choice, to become something even I can't design." The answer came not in words, but in possibility itself, as the dawn broke over a world where the borders between what was, what is, and what could be had begun to transform into something entirely new. The nothing retreated, but not because it had been defeated, because it had been changed, given possibility, made real. And in that moment, the final battle for Earth became something else entirely. The first step into a universe of endless transformation. The transformed town pulsed with possibilities, each street now a river of potential, each building a gateway to what could be. But at the center of it all, John could feel the network straining, reality itself groaning under the weight of so much change. "It's too much," Marina warned, her evolved form flickering. "The physical world can't hold this level of transformation." The grand architect stepped into the circle of joined hands. "There's only one way to stabilize it. John, do you remember the first rule of building?" "Every creation needs a heart," John answered, ancient lessons returning. Then his eyes widened. "No, you don't mean. The network needs an architect to become its heart, to guide the transformation, forever." Sarah's hand tightened on his. "You'll be trapped," she said, frozen as a living pattern in the machinery of reality. The nothing pressed against their barrier of possibility, seeking any crack of doubt or fear. Around them, the transformed beings, human, luminary, and former void hunters, struggled to maintain their circle. But then Mike stepped forward, his ordinary human form somehow shining brighter than all the transformed beings. "You're all missing something," he said, "something humans figured out a long time ago." "What's that?" the commander asked, its crystalline form resonating with curiosity. "Stories don't end. They change. Every ending is just a new beginning seen from a different angle." As he spoke, something extraordinary happened. The memories and possibilities flowing through their circle began to take new forms. Not just images or feelings, but living stories. Every person's hopes, dreams, and choices became threads in a greater tale. John watched in wonder as human imagination, the power that had drawn him to Earth in the first place, began to transform transformation itself. "He's right," Ms. Chen said, her observer's knowledge expanding with new understanding. Humans don't just embrace change, they imagine it into new forms. They dream it forward. The grand architect's ancient face lit up with surprise. Of course, John, you didn't hide yourself on Earth just to learn about transformation. You came to learn about stories. Suddenly, John understood. He turned to Sarah, whose transformed light now danced with living tales of their time together. That's why you were really sent to me. Not to make me forget, but to help me remember how to tell stories, how to imagine new ways of being. The Nothing's assault faltered as reality itself began to shift, not into chaos or even pure possibility, but into living narrative. Every transformed being in the circle found themselves becoming both character and author of existence itself. The network doesn't need a heart, John realized. It needs a story big enough to hold all other stories. He raised his hands, and the strained network began to change. Instead of machinery containing possibility, it became a living library of potential, each node a chapter in an endless tale. The transformed void hunters, their crystalline forms now flowing with living stories, began to sing. The luminary joined them, their light carrying tales of stars and worlds and chances taken. Humans added their voices, their everyday dreams and hopes weaving through the cosmic core. But the Nothing had one last attack. It sent not emptiness, but a dark mirror of story itself. Tales of endings, of defeat, of changes that led only to loss. That's when Sarah stepped into the center of the circle with John. Then let's tell the greatest story, she said. The one that's always been true. Their kiss this time didn't just release memory and possibility. It became a new kind of tale. The story of two beings who chose to become more than they were made to be. Of love that refused to follow the expected plot. Power surged through the network, but now it wasn't straining. It was growing, evolving, becoming a living chronicle of transformation itself. Every street in town became a page in the universe's story. Every transformed being became both reader and writer of reality. The Nothing found itself being written into the tale, not as an enemy, but as the space between words that gives them meaning. The hunger for certainty became the tension that makes stories worth telling. Look, Mike pointed at the sky, where the dawn had become a canvas of living light, shadow, and endless possibility. The grand architect watched in amazement as her own form began to flow with new stories. In all my existence, she said, I never imagined this. We thought we had to defend against the Nothing, but we really had to learn to write it into our story. Marina, the commander, and all the transformed beings began to glow with new purpose. They weren't just changed beings anymore. They were living chapters in an eternal tale. What happens now? Sarah asked, still holding John's hand. He smiled, his architect's power now flowing with human dreams. Whatever we imagine, whatever we choose to write next. The town shimmered, its transformed state becoming permanent but not fixed, a place where stories could begin, end, and begin again. Where light and shadow danced together telling tales of what was, what is, and what could be. And the best part about stories, Mike added with a grin, is that they can be shared. From the town, waves of living narrative began to spread across Earth, not changing things by force, but offering the possibility of becoming part of a greater tale, of choosing to be more than what you were written to be. The grand architect nodded in approval. And so the architect becomes the author, and the defense becomes the story, and the end is just the beginning. John and Sarah finished together, their transformed forms now writing new chapters in reality with every breath. Above them, the sun rose on a world where possibility had become story, where transformation had become choice, and where love had become the power to write yourself anew. In the coffee shop where it all began, a new set of lights flickered on. And somewhere in town, a child looked up at the story-filled sky and began to imagine what could happen next. After all, the best tales are the ones that never truly end. They just turned the page to a new beginning.